I have the same phone.
I finally asked work from
Laura, I have the same phone. It does take amazing pictures.
I'm like
Amazing.
But now I'm thinking
Yes.
like
My friend sent me a video and it used to be like
Grainy. And now it's like, yes.
you're like, can I get a razor?
So I'm going to put you on speaker.
I remember that because
Mike's on the line.
I didn't know my guy. I was like, my daddy and I got iPhone. Here we got married.
So I tried to launch the meeting, it's not letting me,
Got it. We had him ever since.
I just seriously
12 plus years iPhone. I know what I'm doing.
You're working from that link we sent?
yeah.
No, nobody else is in the waiting room. Here, let me go ahead and do this. There you are. All right, I'm resending it to you.
What kind of phone do you have? What kind of phone do you have? Do you have a flip phone?
Walking away from the feedback.
Somebody is.
yeah. And then we had the one that just kind of
Okay, Mike, you might be on.
had a
I've got a stupid Android. I hate
We'll get started in a second. I think we're trying to get our guest
if I
on.
need one, it's just a waste of
No,
$5 a
no,
month.
I'm promoting
You're-
his channel.
She's promoting you to a
I
panelist.
have,
That'll put
I
his
don't
picture
really
up
have
there
a
when he turns his camera on.
you know, I'm like, you know, kind of thing. Right. I don't have any name. And I'm like, I just think I got it from Saturday. I spend all day because I normally don't talk during the day.
Second in Thunderbird, and they had made a new agreement with something called Nail Fence. And there's out of Belgium, and I guess Belgium has super strict privacy laws. And they will only release information
Mike,
if
you've
they're
been
required to
to
by
panelists,
Belgian
you can
courts.
go ahead and.
So they have to
Turn your camera on, you should be good to go.
I think I got it. Yeah.
But when I was doing that, you know, out of the millions of websites
You're good to go.
on the web, 75% have trackers from Google,
First item on the agenda
and
is
25% from
policy and
Facebook.
plan on certain property.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. First item tonight, excuse me, I already have a frog in my throat, is regarding the council's direction we hope to have for hunting on some property that the city owns, located south of 49th Street at 35th Avenue, really just west, and well, parking lot is west, the property is south and southeast of the wastewater treatment plant. There's a map in your packet on your agenda report of the property in question. You'll see that it extends from kind of south of the wastewater treatment plant and then kitty corner southeast, and it does actually even cross the river at certain points. So joining me at the table, we have our city clerk, Julie Kampka, who's our current administrator of hunting permits, and Randy Reedy, whose team is from Public Works and also from Recreation, have been doing some brainstorming on how we could manage this property differently based on whichever direction council gives regarding the scale of our hunting program. So that's really what we are looking for direction on. The city has allowed hunting on this property since about 2011, and we've issued permits each year since that time. And as the chart in your packet shows, for most years, up till just a couple years ago, we had very little permit activity for the property. We had either 0 or 1 or 2, really just 2 in 1 year, and then zeros for 2015, 2017, 2018. And then we started to see some more interest, some more permits in 2019. And then 2020, perhaps coincident with the COVID pandemic, we've seen a real increase or spike in the interest for hunting. And I believe our resource, whom I'll introduce in a moment, from Colorado Parks and Wildlife has told us that this is not unique to our property. lots more interest in hunting over the past couple of years. Our permits went up almost to 20 in 2020, and then we saw a similar pattern of permit applications for 2021. So many to the point that we did engage the district wildlife manager for this region with the Colorado Department of Parks and Wildlife, Michael Grooms, who is with us by Zoom tonight to answer any questions that the council might have. Mr. Grooms is effectively the state's law enforcement manager for these for all wildlife matters under the department's jurisdiction, and he's been very helpful with us. We reached out this past spring when we saw the continuing increased trend for hunting permits, just to get some advice on number of permits that were hunters that would be safe. And he advised at the time probably 5 to 6. So we said, we really need to kind of pause here, get some direction from council for this following season, because while we know that we don't have 20 plus or even 18 hunters at any given time, we do know that currently with our kind of looser rules, there is the potential for more hunters than perhaps is safe at any given time, especially if they're in one area of the property. So that's kind of some background. I'm going to keep these remarks relatively short because I know the council has heard and in some cases seen more of this property, and we'll certainly want to leave time for questions for Mr. Grooms or staff. But what we have in your staff report is really the question of scale of hunting program. It could range from kind of our status quo, which would be allowing permits kind of without a limit. And if we go that route, it would take a little more management of the property. We've learned about some hunting registration systems and heard from Mr. Grooms about the way the state manages their properties to ensure that whatever our limit for hunters on a given day might be, that we can ensure access for all who would like it, but in limited numbers on a given day to keep it safe. So that's one option, and of course council could decide on any number of permits. It's really just a couple scenarios here. We also had one scenario where council could limit it to, say, 6 permit holders. That would match the number of hunters that would be safe on the property at a given time. That would not require quite as much management. We could probably get away without the registration system, the online system that we would need with more permits. And the, I guess, third option that council could decide is that we're not going to allow hunting on the property. Couple of the additional recommended practices is that we might shift our permits from a full year annual permit like they are now. The permit starts actually with, whenever the application's made, so we have them all kind of starting and stopping at a different time. Our thought would be that we would sync these up with the hunting season, and when you look at the state Parks and Wildlife hunting season rules, really the September 1st to May 31st would cover the seasons, the most popular seasons for hunting, including fall and spring turkey seasons, which are popular among the hunters here. We also have a number of suggested practices here that we think it would make our property a little more consistent in terms of rules with the state parks and wildlife management practices. And we think, and we've heard from Mr. Grooms, would help us to probably prevent accidents even further. You can see those in your packet. Those include some of the measures like, of course, state hunting license required. We think we should limit weapons used to shotguns and archery, that would, meet the interests of most hunters for waterfowl and turkey. Certainly, we know that could present some challenge or some displeasure with anyone hunting deer who might currently use a rifle on that property. But I know Mr. Grooms and our police chief, Rick Brandt, who's also here to answer any questions, have expressed concerns with rifle use on the property, given the proximity to houses south of the river, the wastewater treatment plant, 49th Street, and those other land uses. We would recommend disallowing target shooting and camping, fishing, and the use. We wouldn't allow fires. So all of these things we feel, we know, would make our property more consistent with other hunting properties in the area, I think in Weld County. And also no horses is there too. So those would be recommendations for council to consider. I do want to acknowledge one error in the staff report. There's a statement regarding our current permit, which is in your packet for you to see. We said that it's adequately shifts responsibility for liability from the cities to the hunters. And I had a good question. I'll thank Councilmember Mortensen in a conversation about this, just about that issue. I came back and read the permit again and had a conversation with the city attorney. And we think that that's one area we really need to strengthen the language in the permit to ensure that we're shifting as much liability as possible. And I know Scott had some thoughts about kind of key tenets of liability. I might turn, I don't know if I can put you on the spot, but I think the liability is one of the key questions for us, and Scott might weigh in.
I think liability comes from one of two sources. A recommendation or expert. And they say that's one place. The other place comes from the government. Might be viewed as a recreation facility. Then the test. So.
So with that, I'll conclude staff's remarks, and we're available for questions in terms of kind of current permitting. We have Michael Grooms again with us, and Randy has been working with various departments to come up with some ideas for how we could most efficiently manage this, depending on the council's direction. What we have, Mayor?
Thanks. Questions of staff or the wildlife gentlemen, or comments?
On the permit, I was asking yesterday, I was told how much it was, and I was told that you can put up to 4 people on one.
I think now you can.
There have actually been, I believe, up to 6 people on one permit.
That would be our limit right there. That's it.
We think each person should have a permit.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I don't think we should make it transferable either.
No.
Who else?
I apologize if I wasn't able to go yesterday, but what is the signage or whatever like out there for those who are in the area that don't hunt? Like, is it? I have no idea. I should know. I used to live by there, but
right now the property in theory is closed off. It is fenced off. It's gated.
okay.
And those with hunting permits, again, in theory, have access. We've heard that we need to tighten that up too.
Okay.
We think some ways to do that. But right now, there's not clear public access.
Yeah, because I think my only concern there would be, Scott's point, just looking at liability for the city and just ensuring that we've got the appropriate kind of warnings out there for anybody who may go onto the property without a permit or anything like that. So I think that would be beneficial. But I'm good with the recommendation for, I don't know that I'd say unlimited permits, because I think there comes at some point, but more than 6 permits with a reservation process. I'm good with that.
Well, I think as far as it says $100 to apply for the permit, and then $25 per individual. So if you put 4 people on there, it's $200. So I just, if I decided I wanted to go hunting with my dad, he decides he's coming up from Aurora to go hunting, and he's not on here. What are we going to do? Should I stop by here and add him?
Yes, because when each license is issued, each individual gets their own little City of Evans hunting license card. So you would have to add him to the existing application as an additional hunter and pay the additional fee.
So I think that since we have these supposedly divided up into 2 zones and we're saying a maximum of 6 people, I think that maybe we should limit each hunting permit application to 4 individuals. And then on those cases where they come and parties as before or whatever, I mean, because I would like to see, those zones being used. And if I came with 4 people and Allie wanted to come with 3 on the same day, but be in a different location, I don't know if we should be saying, sorry, one of us has to drop a person. The other thing is with Amanda's, did a little too much talking the other day. I'll try not to do that same thing tonight. But as far as Amanda goes, something that I did notice on the little tour was I think that we'll have to invest as a city for liability reasons, maybe a nicer fence between public city property and Mr. Guerreri's property, and also post to state regulations. I think it's every 50 foot on private property signs viewable from our direction. Everybody seemed like they were on a pause, so I'll just continue here. I'm for having this as a hunting place with permits, and I don't know, I don't think that we necessarily need to regulate how many permits we give out. I would like to see us have a assigned time reservation system. I know that they do that for duck hunting at Bard Lake and some other facilities. I'm just kind of going through here. And as far as hunters go, I know that we want to put a limitation on it, but I'm an avid hunter, and I tell you, if I'm going somewhere and there's always 15 people there or 10 people there, I'm not going to go there again. Or I'm going to drive by and look and see, if there's 3 vehicles there, maybe I'm not going to stop there. So I think that as far as hunters go, I mean, they pretty much weed themselves out, and they're very cautious on what they want to do. The last thing you want to do is go spend the whole day, humping through the forest there, and you're not going to see any game because it's already been flushed out. So I like the idea of having a reservation system, and not really so much as limiting the license fees, because if we do, if we have 20 people, we have 25 people, for me that goes to building the fence, that kind of goes to, putting up some signs. And I also agree with the fact that we need to just limit it to shotguns and archery.
Brad, have you got anything?
Well, I'd like to ask Mr. Grooms, I'm not familiar with his,
A little bit louder into the microphone.
yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Grooms, I'm not familiar with his management area, wildlife district. Have you had to impose no rifles in certain areas that you manage?
Yes, one of those is going to be very close to the city of Evans. It's actually right on the east side of the Evans municipality there at 37th Street and First Avenue along the South Platte River. It's called Broward State Wildlife Area. And that is only open to turkey, small game, and waterfowl hunting from September 1st till the end of May when spring turkey season closes. And then the property is closed from more or less June 1st until September 1st. And due to residential homes, commercial development there along 37th Avenue and First Ave, I've restricted rifle hunting at that location, as well as Webster State Wildlife Area, which would be southwest of your Evans property there that we're talking about this evening. It's just on the south side of the South Platte River and just north of 394. And that is shotgun and archery hunting only for the same reasons.
Thank you.
I have a question for him too. Why is falconry not allowed in Broward and in several of the other state parks? I mean,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Why is falconry an exception?
An exception?
Yeah, I'd like to see.
Why is it not allowed? That's your question, Councilman?
Yeah, that would be something I'd like to see allowed on our property too.
Sure. So just to differentiate between what a state park is and what a state wildlife area is. So a state park is managed by the parks section of our agency. You may be familiar with our merger that happened in 2011 when we used to be the Division of Wildlife and the state park system. So we're merged together now. So we have state parks like Boyd Lake and Chatfield and St. Vrain State Park. And then on the wildlife side, we have state wildlife areas like Broward State Wildlife Area and Webster that I just mentioned. And those are managed strictly for, first and foremost, for wildlife and wildlife habitat. And if we see fit for hunting or angling recreation to occur on the property, then we'll allow that with regulations that are set forth on that specific property. With regards to falconry, haven't allowed that on state wildlife areas is oftentimes we're going to have other hunters that are going to be there with shotguns, bows, hunting game at the same time a falconer may be present. And for the bird to be able to hunt efficiently and for the safety of the bird and the falconer, allow falconry hunting on state wildlife areas, if that makes sense. It's too much of a issue with danger of having a falcon get injured or hurt. As guns are being discharged and just having the disturbance of other people on the ground hunting when the bird's trying to focus on hunting its prey. Just something
to keep in mind, though. I'm heavily involved with the falconers too, and if there's a lot of people there shooting guns and stuff, I mean, they like to be by themselves, so they would not be, getting any in anybody's way and in endangering their birds for sure. I just wanted to hear from you why that's an issue. So thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Lee, did you have anything? You have the last one.
I echo what everyone says. In essence, I am for also, having a permit during the hunting season for, May, September to May, and then not limiting, and then just ensuring that the waiver form is clear as, council. Just to ensure that we're covered, especially when it comes to liabilities. But aside from that, yeah, I echo what everyone said, and clear signage is definitely important in ensuring that we have the proper fencing.
Anything to the group?
property that you have talking about used to be part of. So I drove Jim kind of nuts this year. So, so there's a couple things. One, the problems that I had down there this year. So I think the property, this is my opinion. Nobody really parked out, they just drove through. One other thing with the reservation system that would be good is towards the end of this spring, last 4 or 5 days, there's probably 15 people out there at once. They'll fill their tag the first day or when they're out there, then they just. So you end up having, a ton of them trying to fill their permit. The other thing is whatever you give them, I don't mind if you give them my number. A couple times, the person that I know goes down there and hunts, he shot a turkey and he came onto my property and he called me to see if he could go on. And they tend to, when something, I don't know why, a lot of cover, but they don't go down probably because of the river, but they seem to come north. So I can be a contact person on there or whatever, so if somebody needs to
I'm in agreement as well. I'm for the. What's a little bit more staff work? I'm in favor of that. The consensus we kind of have here as a group is.
Yeah.
So they can't come in and ask you. Right. You probably don't want that after you sell your property. So no. Most hunters are pretty.
There's people around here, most of them know all. And once at one time,
Right. Could I have one more point? If I could ask Randy to just speak to the innovative idea that staff has for the access that would limit our costs and I think help to have access for the hunters.
Yeah, we're piloting a Bluetooth lock that will allow us to issue multiple codes to people, similar to the doors here, the cards or the numbers. Numbered lock that would allow us some degree of accountability, if you will. We'll know which codes were used to access the lock at which time. So got one of those. We're kind of trying it out on the wastewater property, just kind of seeing how that works, but helpful rather than having a staff person come out and unlock it an hour before sundown and make sure it's locked an hour after. Clear signage and regulations and lock it and then lock it back. If that doesn't happen, we know who left it open.
Then if I could, Mayor, just to check the council's consensus on these rules that are in the staff report, any causing heartburn, or we'll be good with these? Yep, all those things?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh, I was just going to say, are you, for the two different zones, are you going to enter I come down 23rd.
Yeah. We wanted to talk with you about that once we kind of can sit down and talk through
I
that.
think it would be good because people
Right,
behind
that's a
the
good
east
idea.
zone would have to walk clear across the west side.
Right,
You know.
that's a really good idea.
So yeah, so I think you have two different.
If we can get the access there into the process.
Technically, I think I you guys
Right, yep,
yeah. Have an access from the
23rd
29th
down to the river. Yep,
That'd be good.
Mr. Guerrero is an important partner in this area.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
The other thing, I think it sounds like what you're getting ready to read there, Jim, mirrors pretty much the state regulations for hunting properties. So I think that's another simplification of rules that between the city and the state if they match up, so that hunters don't get confused.
we've noted,
Ordinances.
Mr. Grooms, I'm sorry to interrupt you, council member. Mr. Grooms shared a list of the regulations at different parks, and there is some variability just based on the game, the size, and all those other things. This is the most consistent list based on kind of the parks in our area and the conditions that we've been advised on. So, and as we continue working with Mr. Grooms, if anything else is strongly advised, we'll probably include that. But this is kind of, I think, the heart of it in terms of the rules. That answers all of our questions, Mayor.
Well, we have Mr. Grooms on. I don't know if staff has asked you to come and have someone swing by Riverside Park and check fishing.
Was that a question for me?
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know if staff has mentioned, I know we've been talking about this other area, but I just would love to see someone stop by Riverside Park on occasion. They used to stop by Riverside Park and check fishing licenses.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing questions from the council themselves. I'm able to hear Jim pretty well, so maybe Jim could.
Well, Jim was supposed to ask you anyway.
Of course, Councilmember Spear is asking about your department's patrol or visiting the Riverside Park area and the lake there, checking for fishing licenses. I think I heard that she would like to see more of that. I'm not sure if you can comment on how your office does that.
Yeah, so I was actually out there Friday checking licenses. So as district wildlife manager for Colorado Parks and Wildlife, historically, our job titles were game wardens, which we still are, but our job descriptions have changed drastically over the years due to human demographics in the country. So I cover about 1,200 square miles in Weld County, and law enforcement is about 50% of my job duties. And so I'm the only officer in Central Weld County that covers Evans, Alpha Greeley, Johnstown, Milliken, Platteville, Wiggins, Rogan. So I got a lot of landscape to cover. But I am out there at Riverside Park, usually, especially after we stock the lake a couple times a year, right after fish stocking, because that's when people really want to be out there catching fish. So I'm patrolling that area. That you just don't see me out there, every day of the week. But I am out there. So I'll try to get out there a bit more. But I was there Friday.
Once or twice a year is fine. Just as soon as you do. You can always tell when they stock the lake.
Mr. Grooms, thanks for being with us tonight. At the mayor's discretion, I think we're at the conclusion of the work session. So thank you for your help so far and your continued partnership with us.
Yeah, you bet. And just for what it's worth before I leave, thank you for inviting me to the meeting. And I know this can be a bit of a process to work out, especially as we're getting a lot more pressure on our resources out there from recreationists of all different types. So you guys may revisit some of this stuff next year after like a pilot year going through it, but I'm here to help any way I can and to make sure our hunters out there are hunting safely, ethically, and responsibly, whether it's on private land or public land or somewhere in between. So I'm here to help. When I can, so just let me know.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
You too.
On the agenda is a report on fireworks enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fireworks enforcement strategies and outcomes.
Thank you, Mayor. Our police department has had a couple weeks to kind of tally the numbers and see where we are with fireworks enforcement. I know that those matters will be working themselves through the courts in the next couple months. But as we always like to do, we do want to report back to council on how the year went, what the general trends were for fireworks. And this year we have Commander Dan Reynes, who will be giving the report. Turn it over to Commander Reynes.
Thank you, Jim. Members of the council. This year, like most surrounding municipalities, we saw a considerable decrease citywide in fireworks activity. We did our practice we've been doing for the last few years. We had a social media campaign on both our webpage and Facebook. Again, we distributed flyers with our water bills that went out citywide, reminding what the city ordinance is and fireworks safety. Flyers went out to our fireworks vendor tents and some other retailers. And this year we had a couple more. We had 5 electric signboards out throughout the city, plus the city marquee reminding what the potential fine would be for a fireworks violation. We had overtime shifts that ran through our enforcement period of June 3rd through July 5th during our typical heavy fireworks time. And this year we were able to get officers to every firework complaint that was called in. So that's something we weren't able to do or in years past, excuse me. As usual, 4th of July is a blackout time for us, so officers that are normally scheduled to work 4th of July aren't able to take that off. So we had all available resources out working that night. And zero policy or zero tolerance policy if an officer would be able to establish probable cause, meaning seeing somebody to put flame diffuse or constructive possession of an illegal firework. This year we had 56% fewer calls in our enforcement period than years past, and that's a trend we saw in surrounding areas. Greeley had 48% fewer calls, and Denver, I believe, was in the 60% realm for fewer fireworks complaints. So this is a regional decrease. This year, all in all, as you see, we had $2,200 in change in overtime compensation for the fireworks shifts. Cost us a little under $1,200 for the water billing inserts, and all of the electric signboards, including renting, 2 of them came to $2,800. So a little over $6,200 for all our enforcement efforts this year. So in a nutshell, that's what I have. Any questions?
Dan, just before we turn it back, could you talk a little bit about the change in dispatch for fireworks and how that can be a complicating factor for our officers?
Absolutely. We recently instituted silent dispatch, so certain calls are no longer aired to officers. It's just automatically sent to their terminal, and the dispatcher doesn't contact an officer. The Weld County Regional Communications Center this year established a criteria countywide, not just for Evans, that if somebody called in a fireworks complaint and didn't provide an exact address or location, they didn't want to provide their name, meaning they wanted to stay anonymous, or they didn't request follow-up contact from an officer, they were simply going to put that call, what we call on the board or on the computer screen, for a period of 10 minutes, and that call would be wiped out. So that happened this year, but fortunately we had the resources where officers were able to see every one of those and still respond. So we weren't overly impacted by that this year. But that is going to be their new procedure with fireworks complaints moving forward.
Just fireworks.
Just
fireworks.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if I anonymously saw someone getting stabbed and I didn't want to get.
Oh.
Then I surely hate to drop off in 10 minutes.
Yes, no, just fireworks.
That concludes our remarks, Mayor.
Questions of the police department or staff?
I just have to. All your efforts that you've done every year have been great, and even this year, I think everything was clearly, displayed. I mean, I saw that sign, 2,600. I was like, oh, sparklers for everyone. No, thank you. Usually, I get a lot of emails in regards to what our guidelines are for 4th of July. And this time around, I didn't get any emails at all. So clearly, everything was great. And the fact that not that you don't do this, but you always do this. But I think people really focus on all the literature that was sent out and all this, your social media campaign, as well as the signs out there. So thank you. That was great.
I just want to hit off of her literature thing. The triple folded piece of literature, was that from the fire department or was that put out by us?
Fire department through us.
Okay, so the fire department, whoever does that literature, needs to update the fine. And it said 2,000, and we went up to 2,650. So
right.
Maybe they can update it for next year. But I saw a significant difference on my side of the block there. I mean, the mortars that usually went off that I put bounty on. I think they had maybe three, and then it seemed like 11:15 at night. It was quiet. So I think whatever we did this year, do it again next year. I'm kind of bummed because I thought we could finance the new police station, and apparently the police officers like where they're at right now because they did not, give any tickets. But I guess they had an easier night. So.
Other comments or questions?
It's my understanding had a problem getting mortars made this year, so I'm wondering if it's going to get worse next year. So
it remains to be seen.
But it certainly
I had a hard
does.
time getting mortars in my neighborhood.
I was going to say, that's probably the only
They were huge.
Us poor people couldn't afford them.
They were loud.
Yeah.
But it was cool. Did we get any of those tickets? I didn't see in the stuff.
We had 3 warnings issued this year, and we weren't able to issue any citations this year.
Okay, cool. So, and that was okay on your budget, the extra $4,000, $5,000 that we threw on you?
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Okay.
We always do.
Yeah, I think for me, I appreciate all the hard work, so please don't let my comments. I think I'm going to greatly assume that a lot of the decrease in calls was also due to it being 2021, perhaps a celebration that 2020 was over. Because to Mayor Rudy's point, I know in our neighborhood it did not seem like less. In fact, I had neighbors that I swear it's like every night of the week they're still going. And I am what my son refers to a total Karen, yelling at people. And I still felt myself doing that. But what I will say is I appreciate so much the continued education and discipline of the officers. To Councilwoman Spears' point, the benefit too is that I did sense that while they went for a while and we heard them, I did feel like there was a pretty good cutoff time. I'm fine with it. I'll let it slide on the 4th. Other days I may be screaming in my hot rollers and bathrobe, but that's fine. But I really appreciate all the hard work. I just hope next year we continue to see great trends. I would expect we're probably going to see an uptick next year, but I don't want any of that to take away from the hard work that you all have done, because I think that is really indicative of the success we've seen year over year.
Anyone else? Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Last item on the agenda is council discussion. Anyone have anything for the rest of the council? Come on, Tammy, what do you got?
Oh, amazing.
You got something.
Wow.
I understand that there may be birthday cupcakes in the break room, courtesy of Councilman Mortensen, for the mayor's birthday, which is this weekend.
And your birthday.
I didn't even know that. I
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are birthdays.
His
What?
birthday is this weekend. So
No
happy
ice
birthday.
cream
Happy
cake?
birthday.
How about cupcakes?
No ice cream cake?
Sorry, I'm making you.
I've heard about this ice cream cake.
How cute was that picture of James with your kid?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Stanley. That was
You're
very
welcome.
sweet.
Happy birthday.
We have a few minutes, and I presume they're all, everyone's welcome to have cupcakes.
Anyone else have anything? We all good? Okay, cool. We got 15 minutes.
Coming in fast.